There have been so many funerals this week, so many deaths. And I was talking to somebody the other day. She was headed to one. I was like, I haven't heard of anybody dying, I swear, in like a year. And now in the past week and a half, everywhere I turn, there's been a funeral and someone has lost. But I feel like I would rather it be all clumped together instead of.
Yeah, it usually comes in sequences and like cycles. I've noticed like patterns of three. Usually, like last year, especially in March, we found out about multiple friends in the same group dying at the same time.
Yeah. It makes it easier, I suppose, if we're all grieving together instead of separately. Sometimes it can get a little sticky because I know when a couple of years ago we lost my grandfather and then my father-in-law at the exact same time. So when you have things like that happen, it feels it's like a grief tug of war, and you don't know. So you don't really. I didn't feel like I got to grieve either one because I was trying to make sure that the I don't know, there's like a hierarchy of grief almost, it feels like I'm only allowed to be this amount of upset about this particular person because I was only that close with them. So I have to make sure that this person over here who was definitely way closer to them is having all the space that they need to grieve more than I am. And it's why do we overthink these things? But
Yeah, it deconstructs our reality. It makes it hard for us to like actualize it too because there's so much pressure to either respond with like extremity or detachment. And so it's hard to kind of like find a balance, especially when you have to think about like connections instead of their impact.
were you guys close?
So I have not seen her in over a decade. We mostly hung out between like 2013 and 2015. And we hung out a lot because a relationship of mine at the time had a band where we would all meet at someone's house. And she actually tried to reach out to me, and I didn't even see the message because Messenger has such a chokehold on my brain, honestly. But she was just a very bright person. We went to a glow party one time and we like put on a bunch of neon socks and we painted each other's faces and walked there. And then it was not the type of like social expectation that we all had. It was like a bunch of like high schoolers, so we all like walked away and then just had fun on our own. And yeah, she was very, very sweet. I had seen a lot of people I had not seen in a long time, and that was great too. That was uplifting, but it's also like under circumstances that are just kind of hard to absorb a lot of emotions. And it was honestly so beautiful because I didn't know that you could do this. She was buried like directly in the earth. I had to go out somewhere in Hazel Green where they did like a direct burial service. And they asked everyone to bring out crystals. And she had like a whole 5 gallon bucket full and a shoebox full of just crystals. Everyone that brought it was amazing.
Wow. I didn't know you could do that either. I thought that that's
Yeah,
the standard these days legally. They had to either cremate you or put you in a box. But also, I have historically, like most people, especially most people our age, avoided looking into any of that. I was thinking yesterday, we had my daughter's birthday party yesterday. So, all the family and friends were over. And afterwards, I was cleaning up and I was sitting there thinking about how we should really put a will together because if something were to happen to me and my husband, by default, the people who would probably get my kids is probably not who I want to get my kids. So the person that I would like to get my kids is not going to want them. But like that sounds like a funny statement. She would be the best person for the job. She just would never be like, "Oh, let me have them." It would have to be forced upon her, and it would be good.
ideal but not desired.
Yes. Yes.
And her mom had even approached me yesterday, and I had never seen her actually because all the house that we had all mutually met at was not hers. And so I showed her mom the painting I made for her, and she was like, "Thank you, that's amazing." And it just sucks having finding out that she was about to be a mom as well, some of the things that were said around that just were very upsetting because as a fellow mom, it's like, man, that whole future is gone. But then it also, I think a lot about people's impact. And this is going to sound morbid, but there was this book I read. It was written off of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. So it was based off of them. And it was 4 and 5, The Dream Master and Dream Child. And when one of the characters died, her like friends around her started showing these qualities that she had, like these random little quirks. And it's the same as like the candle concept, like the candles that we light, they continue like burning in some way, or they show like it continues. Our impact is so great, and I'm trying to twist it into like a good. It is also, it has to be accompanied with the bad and the heartbreak at the same time.
Yeah, life is painful, but you have to have that duality to understand that the depths of our grief is only matched by the magnitude of our joy that we're able to experience. And we don't like that. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun, but the amount of joy that you can experience, unfortunately, you have to have that contrast because if you're always hanging out in the middle where things are kind of mild, kind of comfortable, kind of boring, then you don't experience one or the other because you don't know how to experience the joy when you've never experienced the pain. The joy is always present. It's just most of us don't have the capabilities of seeing it and grabbing hold of it. You know, we think that joy is something that's reserved for, like a concert, that magnitude of like the exciting energy and stuff like that doesn't come around very often. You have to be able to find the joy in the mundane, in the everyday boringness, per se.
And it
And
won't balance if there's no circulation. Like if it's just stillness, like a ceiling fan, it's got to like keep it going.
it's got to stir it up or it
Yes.
stagnates.
Yes. It makes me think of have you seen Hell's Paradise?
No.
It's a really good one, but there's a character where she talks about Tao, and she tries to explain over and over again to them that there has to be strong and weak. You cannot
Mm-hmm.
just like function and burn out through strength, or it will all dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
And she can see their energy fields kind of like changing and dissipating. And if they don't have like a weakness, kind of like creating balance there, then they don't fight very well.
Yeah, I'm always trying. That's the battle being a yoga teacher. That's always the battle that I'm fighting around here is that everybody wants the hardcore exercise, which is great in its own dominion, but you have to have the balance for optimal health and well-being. People are, and it's our culture. It's the go, 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 the productivity
Yeah, we
chase.
want to see progress like immediately.
Yep. So we don't know how to slow down. And then everybody has stress and anxiety and overwhelmed, and their nerves are just frazzled all the time, and they're hectic and chaotic, and they just want everything to be much more mellow than what it is. And they don't understand that if you want the calm, if you want to ease the anxiety and the stress, you have to work out your muscles that demand that. Like it's not your muscles, like your physical actual like triceps and whatnot. It's a muscle that is energetic in nature. It's in your heart and head and all encompassing. And it's the energy field around you that you feel electrified when when there's too much going on and you're stressed out and anxious and overwhelmed. You have to tune that. You have to retune it to the peace and the calm and the slow and those emotions that you want. But doing that requires a little, it's nobody can go from doing 0 push-ups to doing 20 push-ups. It's hard.
And And it's hard to also remember that not everyone is like, some people are actually afraid of like mindfulness and presence, like within
Yes.
their bodies and within their brains. They can't take a moment. And it's hard to find a moment. Um, I have been working at a dental lab for the last few months now, and I enjoy it. However, I forget like basic concepts are not like recognized by other people because I'll talk about breathing techniques and they'll be like, "Oh, that's very wise." Like, "Oh, this is just the basis."
Like,
And I'll have to get up. It's 10-hour shifts, so I get out of my computer chair very often throughout the day, and I'm having to do my leg kickbacks to pop it out of my hips.
hmm
I'm always hurting, so I'm always having to stretch and do my little like routine of getting everything out and releasing it and breathing, and it's just they get really confused about it. They're like, "What are you doing? Why are you popping like that? It's so hard." I'm like, "If I don't, it will hurt. It will be physically painful. I will have an even worse day."
hmm Yeah, I don't understand how people can just sit for hours and hours and hours. If I,
The rigidity.
yes, if I sit for the most I sit is probably to do a podcast like this. So on average, I'll sit for an hour and a half to 2 hours doing this, and that's all I can muster. My body hurts so bad. It's so funny because the more active you are, the less stagnant you can be because everything starts to lock up and get tight
And it
immediately.
wants to stay in motion more.
hmm Which is great and awesome, but makes doing computer work really difficult and really
Very
painful.
hard. Yeah, even when I do schoolwork, I have to like find a way to multitask. And I've seen, I think, is it pronounced like Pomodoro? The 25-25 minute methods of studying where
I
you
don't
can
know.
like I've tried doing that and that has honestly not helped me reserve the focus and multitask at the same time.
Yeah.
But I did also want to circle back to the seeing progress quickly part. Um, when we kind of push it out and get discouraged and we don't work as hard because we're not seeing it,
Mhm.
I was able to see the opposite of that. So I think the beginning of 2023, no, beginning of 2024. So I wasn't able to get my heels to touch the ground in down dog when I first started in 2021. And when I was doing yoga at the beginning of 2024, yeah. It was within the last few years. It was very recent, but it was on a New Year's Day because I was so excited that I wrote it down in my journal and I was able to get my heels to touch the ground, and that was like one of the most solidifying pieces of progress for me to see with all of
Mhm.
the patients because I didn't think my body would ever like unstiffen. And then I was giving it consistency and then finally seeing like, oh, like this is a very direct thing that I can change and do now. And that was great.
Yeah, it's really hard for people who are trying to do all the things right to find these plateaus where you find yourself stuck and you're like, ah, but I've been doing all the things right. Sometimes, and that's what I tell my students in class is that like my job is to help you talk to your body. My job is not to teach you yoga, really. It's not to help you exercise or to help you stretch. I mean, it is, but I can tell you what the quote unquote proper form is for a pose and how to do it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that might not be how it works for your body. And it's up to you to take the basis of what give you, and play with it and see, well, okay, she said this, but I noticed that if I lean slightly to the left, then it becomes more accessible. Or if I open my hips a little bit to the right, it falls into place. Like you have to play with the pose yourself, and that takes a lot of self-awareness. And sometimes you have to so if no one tool is going to give you all of the answers anyway. And that's all yoga is a tool. Meditation's a tool. Eating healthy is a tool. Massage therapy, regular therapy, pickleball. There's a million different tools out there.
I love skating. I love skating is a good meditator for me, and painting. I love painting so much.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes it takes throwing a different types of noodles at the wall before you find something that finally
Which one's
unlocks.
cooked?
Yeah. Yeah.
I still can't so like my legs can't like reach the sides of my mat, but I've just been doing bound ankle. But I yoga is such a good like guiding point for having an active conversation with your body because
Mhm.
you when you talk to it, it gives you information back. And listening to
Mhm.
like what it's telling you and where it needs more care and attention is super helpful.
Always.
Yes.
Talking to yourself, talking to your body. Uh, it's always talking back, but since it doesn't use words, we think that it's an inanimate object essentially that we're piloting, and it's not. It has its own intelligence. It just, again, doesn't speak in words. It speaks in feelings and emotions and intuitions and leaning like one way or another. And you have to be quiet in order to hear it on a regular basis. Un the pain that we experience and the disease and that those are all symptoms of not being heard when it was a whisper. So now it's yelling at you. Like children, most of the time, children don't automatically jump to tantrum. We just don't pay
There's usually an
attention.
escalation that's
Yes.
not being heard leading up to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Our bodies are the same way. Our minds are the same way. There's because our minds are not us either. So that's another thing that I've been trying to teach
Like,
people that
although we're connected, we're separated at the same time.
we're the conscious observer of. And and you can find evidence of this by like intrusive thoughts. You're just minding your own business and this like absolutely terrible thing pops in your head and you're like, "Whoa, where did that come from? Calm down." And then we start battling with ourselves because we don't like the thought and we're like, that's not me. I don't want that to be me. And then, is that me? And now we're into self-loathing and maybe I'm a terrible person. And well, maybe your brain is designed to keep you safe. So it's always noticing the terrible and the bad and doesn't really pay much attention to anything else.
It
So
always has its wires in like what everyone else's lives have going on at all times with like a network. So then we have to like be responsible observers to kind of shut it down and stay present. But that takes like full active effort all the time.
literally,
It's so exhausting.
it is. And if you can find a place where you can find that alignment to where you're floating, I guess, in between the conscious observer and the one experiencing like the bodily human experience. There you go. I like that. Uh, if you can find the synchronicity and alignment, there's like an in between where you can float in, and that's not exhausting because that's where your true self-actualization, your self-expression, your living your truth, speaking your truth, everything is calm and balanced and
Like an acceptance, like a taking it in for what it is.
yeah, yeah, and just ebbing and flowing and allowing and the path of least resistance. And we're not going to always stay there no matter what. For one, we're not monks. We have lives to live, so we can't just sit and meditate for 8 hours a day every day plus, right? We have to navigate this world that's been given to us, which is hugely problematic and
Volcanic.
but even like if you practice, you can find and it becomes easier to hit that point. Even when things are going on around you, because that's the ultimate thing, right? Is it's really easy to meditate when there's nothing going on around you. But when things are in chaos and turmoil and falling apart, then and you're still able to find that place and hang out there, that's when you're, I don't want to be like, that's when you've
There's
made it.
strength and clarity.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think another thing that bogs it all down is that we do have this like sensor, this like spidey sense where like everything is in place where it should be. And we get stuck thinking that it's going to be permanent so that when a change does happen, it kind of realigns everything and then you have to basically start from scratch, like a whole new foundation. And that's when it's needed most is to actually like sit with it.
Mm-hmm. And it's uncomfortable and we don't want to do it. But the only constant is change. And we really do get stuck in that, oh, I figured it out. And now I'm good. Now I'm going to be good for the rest of my days. And here I am. I finally got here. I've settled in. And then as soon as you do that, though, something flips. You know, you lose a loved one, or you change jobs unexpectedly, or you get in a wreck and now your car's totaled and insurance is
It's hard
fighting
to
with
see
you.
pain as formative. I've spent a lot of time like hating a lot of things, especially like because I was in an accident and that was so much to recover from mentally, physically, financially. It was so
Hmm.
rough. But now I just look back at it as like I guess it was supposed to happen and guide me a whole different direction from wherever I was trying to go because I wouldn't even be doing art therapy by now. Like I was eventually gonna like draw houses. So it's a whole it's I like thinking of all the other timelines that could have happened, but also having gratitude with where mine is. So
Hmm.
it's a good little like side quest characters thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's okay to grieve what you were expecting that didn't happen. You know, when you get derailed, you're on this path and you are working towards a certain goal and you have a certain future in the mind, and then everything gets derailed and now you're over here on this completely different path. It's okay to grieve what
The
didn't
could have
happen,
been.
you know,
Yeah.
and be angry. You know, it's the grief, the 8 stages. How many stages of grief there are?
I think 8 or 12.
Something like that. There's a certain number. And you have to go
And they're
through
never
it
linear
chronically.
either. Like they can be sporadic.
Yeah. Um, when you say you were gonna draw houses, do you mean like architecture?
Yeah, I was taking a lot of drafting classes, doing like CAD programs, and I was gonna draw houses. And when I was younger, I would play The Sims a lot, and I would build the houses. But I had these graph notebooks where I would look on eplans.com for like guides and references, and I would draw little blueprints of houses, and that helped me a lot growing up.
Well,
So I thought
good.
I was gonna draw houses because I even had like college credits and so many things happened in between and now I'm psychology and art and yeah, but I enjoy the direction I'm going. I recognize that it's not the easiest path at all. It's not taken very seriously in the
Yeah.
slightest in any way, but I do enjoy it. I do feel like it's where I'm meant to be, so
Yeah, it's frustrating for sure because I feel similar. You know, it's like you guys don't understand how important this is. Like, me and you pretty well teach similar things, just different avenues of it. You know, it's a emotional regulation, it's coping, it's integrating the past,
and
it's
helping the brain
finding.
and body work together through stress especially.
Yeah, but it's not taken seriously because it's not something you can see and measure. You know, it's more feminine energy, the art, and rather than the scientific hard truths, which are honestly laughable because the more we learn about science, the more we realize we actually don't have a clue what's going on. And
I also think we're like deterred by the simplicity in the language. Like we've
mm,
seen this information even since childhood because it's been everywhere. Like even without access to the internet, like there is information about how to take care of your brain and body. But because it is so simple and we can't like stop to take a moment to do that, they're like, I already know. But there's no action put into it.
yep. Yeah, you don't know until you start putting it into practice. You don't actually know. You just know the concepts. And yeah, we don't want it to be as simple as it is, but we also don't want to, because it's so simple, we don't even want to practice it. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
with it
yeah.
being so surface level, we're not integrating.
hmm And then we wonder why we can't get rid of our demons, essentially. And I will say, I will backtrack on that a little bit. You don't actually ever get rid of your demons. You just kind of learn how to integrate them and you learn about them. And instead of running from them, you turn around and face them and then you understand them. And most of the time, they're not as bad as like they're always put in place to protect you based on like past situations and circumstances and experiences. So there is that.
Like guidances for obstacles.
Mhm. Um, Coming back to your friend's burial, I wanted to touch on that because that is crazy cool. And I think that a lot of our problems these days is that we're so disconnected from ourselves and each other and nature and a higher power and uh, there's so many, it's so mundane, right? We've taken all of the magic out of life, called it childish, told people to grow up, forgotten that we are all just children in grown bodies. There's no difference between us now and then when we were 10 years old. Still that same person, just trying to figure out life. And despite how much we've changed, oftentimes when you find another layer of your true self. It's just a layer that was covered up originally with something else. But
Blankets and shadows.
yep. But I feel like uh, we've become really disconnected from death, you know, avoiding it, not wanting to talk about it, not knowing
There's
how
no
to talk about it.
there's no death education. There's
None.
like that should be a man. I'm so passionate about how that should be like a mandatory thing. Maybe it's because I experienced death at a very early young age, like when I was 3. And so I had a lot of counseling services, a lot of programs, a lot of like friend to friend community groups, things like that. So I had early exposure to having to learn that. And then I was very happy to take courses in college about it and learned a lot more. But it's all striking to see the way that death is handled so poorly because we're not just like taught that it is something so very necessary.
People are afraid of it, and they're afraid of the emotions that come with it. So not only do we not know how to handle and process when we lose someone, but we don't know how to help others when they lose someone to process and whatnot. Um, they say that there's nothing we can say to make it better, but there's a million things we could say to make it worse, and that's usually what we do. We try to say words and we end up making it 10 times worse when all we really have to do is show up and be present and be the witness and allow people to process however that they need to process, and do our best to kind of try steer those in a healthy direction. But I have so many people in my life that they can't move on from the death of a loved one that happened 10 years ago. You know, uh, grief has no timeline for sure. But when you're not actively trying to get better, then you're losing your own life in the
It's
process.
stuck.
Yeah.
There's no chance for progression.
hmm And life's so short. Under the best of circumstances, we get what, 100 years? And it takes us like 35 to actually mature and become an adult. That's my
And
theory.
life
That's
doesn't
my
even start till then, and people don't make it that far, even. And there was a point where this guy had pointed out because she was a very spiritual person, very much so, and so he
hence the
goes, "We
crystals.
can just We can just take a moment to just breathe together out here. And I look over, and there was an older woman just with the most disgusted face at him doing that. But like that is real. Like that is energy that's important. Breath matters. And it's hard to see the disconnect still be so rampant when it's so like proven to just be helpful and beneficial and impactful to just see everything around you and take a breath.
Hmm. Old habits die hard, right? I think I like so Avatar, the blue people, not the Last Airbender. Uh, they did us a huge justice with those movies in bridging the gaps between whatever this world is that we've created and spirituality, bringing it more into the mainstream of understanding because it's been demonized for so long. And I even have people still to this day attack my yoga and I have people who it happened in person the other day. That was new. Uh, well, okay, so I have to elaborate. He didn't attack it. He came to me and his wife was her yoga studio was shutting down. She's been practicing it for years. And so he was asking, if I still do it. And I said, yeah. And we were discussing it. And I was talking about the different types of yoga and how it's a personal practice. So it evolves with the person and how mine's very different than other people's. And I need people to be aware of that so that they're not surprised or,
Yours is trauma informed also, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And we're very yin heavy and restorative heavy. And we focus on the meditative aspects more than the exercise part. And most people, it's just purely an exercise,
They want
100%.
movement rather than stillness.
Yes. And they don't want you to really even direct them on how to think or where to direct their thoughts or how to pull emotions into the present moment. And, there's so many things that I do with my yoga that most people just focus on the exercise part, right? So I was just letting him know how mine was versus everybody else's so that he could make an informed decision. And he just stops in his tracks right there. He went, oh, well, actually, we just want the exercise. Technically, we cannot practice yoga that way. We're not allowed to do any kind of spirituality type things because we're Catholic. And I didn't know how to respond. I was just like, what I ended up saying was, oh, uh, it's not supposed to be religious. It's not supposed to be. I said there's no Buddha. I don't know. I didn't have a response
I
for.
wouldn't know what to say to that at all. And like, I would even, th- I mean, what I would say would probably even sound manipulative. So I would even have to backtrack that. Like, wouldn't God want you to take care of your body? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there about, and there's been active campaigns to diminish this kind of stuff, and uh, we could go back to medieval times when practicing herbalism became demonized because it couldn't be controlled. It was too powerful, and it couldn't be controlled by those in power. So, and then people were moving away from uh, focusing on the church as the source of power to, these ladies who had the herbs and could help your cough. They were giving them the attention and the resources and stuff. So, and it just kind of escalated from there.
They wanted to demonize everything, literally anything and everything that they didn't know or understand.
Yeah.
And yoga is definitely so. When I see people call it demonic, it's just it doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
like in the slightest.
It really took me off guard. The first couple of times it happened, I was distraught. I was so confused. Like, what are you talking about? I grew up in Church of Christ, which is like one step above Pentecostal in its strictness. It
Is
was
that like in
terrible.
the Methodist field, basically, or
No,
no?
it's I'm not even sure. I don't know how to explain it. I
Some of it doesn't make very much sense either. Mine was Baptist, but I had to go to a different church temporarily as a kid, and I could just feel the tension off of everyone because I wasn't like normally there. And I was like, I don't understand. And they were saying completely
literally.
different things. It's like, I don't feel the same way here in this building as this other one. What's going on?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Church of Christ and Baptist are basically sisters.
Like
It,
parallels.
yeah. It's just Baptist is way more laid back and Church of Christ is very straight-laced, rule-oriented. So uh there's no music's allowed. Music and dancing are not allowed. And
No, I would
yeah,
cry.
yeah, let me tell you what, that is problematic. No wonder we all have hip pain,
That's
back
abusive.
issues. Yeah, yeah. Um, Women are not allowed to hold positions of power or even speak during church. Uh, Not even during church, but like in group settings or anything. They have to have there has to be a man leader running everything. Uh,
Orchestrating the socials. Ooh.
Women have to wear dresses and head coverings. It was very strict, very strict. And I was stuck in that environment from the like as long back as far back as I can remember from the get-go to I was probably 14 or 15 when I was finally allowed to not have to be there anymore. But I can't really say I learned a whole lot or absorbed a whole lot. Mostly I just disassociated and drew
Yeah, there was no
pictures.
encouragement for identity development at all.
None. None. And I would ask questions and they didn't and then I would end up in trouble for asking questions.
It's hard
Uh
material to understand personally.
yeah. So I didn't really absorb a whole lot. And then I saw a lot of parallels between what was being taught versus how everyone was acting. So I got really turned away from just organized religion in general. I
Yeah, and
did.
some of the people when they come to hug you, you would be able to feel like, oh, they are not great people.
Oh
And
yeah,
no
you can
longer
feel
want to
that.
be around that anymore, especially with the fear teaching rather than the love knowledge.
Hmm. Yeah, they say that we want to think that we would be able to identify Satan if we passed him on the street, but the truth of the matter is that he looks like a very well-polished church-going politician,
Very normal guy.
very like quote unquote. Yeah, the places like that are rampant with terrible people hiding behind the religion and the nice attire and these because if you it's crazy if you in our area play football and go to church every time the door's open, they will let you get away with whatever. And I've
Follow the
experienced that.
NPC roadmap.
Yeah, that's it. As long as you're conforming to their ideas of ideals, you can get away with whatever you want. And I experienced that personally. I had a boyfriend that I broke up with because he did some really bad things, really bad things. And this was when I was 15, I think it was, and he was 16. And my mom would just not let it go. Not let it go. I can't, just don't understand why you broke up with him. He was such a great guy. He was such a great guy. And I was just like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to
And
talk
you
about this.
shouldn't have to. It's like frogs boiling in hot water. They should
Yeah.
be able to jump out.
Yeah. Well, finally, I was like, look, this is what happened right here. She didn't want to believe it. Oh, Savannah, don't be lying like that. That's just ridiculous. Like, okay, okay. But that's how the culture around here is. And I say around here, it could be, I'm sure it's like that other places as well. I just only know the culture around here because I've lived in the same 10-mile radius my entire freaking life. And
It's very generalized, very populous universal concept that some of these people are terrible and will smile in your face while doing it.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I just could not figure out the social rules, okay? Because apparently you're just supposed to be born knowing and understanding the social rules.
They're
I
hard
couldn't
to
I
understand.
couldn't get them. I couldn't get them. So like at home, I would hear how terrible of a person this one person is, right? And then we would see them out in public and the
Be
same people that
nice.
they would be nice to them, and then I would get in trouble for not being nice to them, and I'd be like, well, but you said they were bad, you know, like you said that they were bad people, and we're not supposed to be nice to bad people, and they're like, Savannah, you don't understand. I'm like, no, I don't.
Maybe be mindful of our words.
That's
So
asking too
one of
much.
the classes I'm taking right now is forensic psych, and I enjoy it. There was a chapter on like how to define or how to make a criminal, and obviously they went on the genetics route. And in like 19th century, they were basically looking for like physical abnormalities and deformities, and one of the common ones was long arms
Okay.
and like how their facial hair would grow out, like basically a good justification for like removing disabled people. And as I was reading that, I was just like, oh my god, because most of the criminals are very able-bodied men that are just not getting mental health treatment because no one is getting proper mental health treatment. And I found out that I think one of the kings, it was King Charles the Eighth or one of the two, the one that was considered the Mad King, the
Okay.
way they handled his mental health issues, oh my god, he didn't stand a chance. Like the demonization of everything has just made us like clueless to betterment in general.
So how did they handle it?
So they would put people over snake pits sometimes. They would just isolate him for long periods of time as well. They tried putting a hole in the back of his head, like pre lobotomy times, and none of these things worked. He just continued being more and more irrational and unreasonable. So he could no longer like be a king, of course, because he was doing really unhealthy things to like everyone in his building and in general. And they were just like, we don't understand why he continues to be mentally ill, but they would just continue doing like very detrimental things.
To make it worse, essentially.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. You know, we're wonderful as a species. Um, do you know when the printing press came out, some of the first books were How to Spot a Witch?
Do they know math? Can
That-
they work with numbers?
Yep. Yep. Are they a woman who can work with numbers?
Do
That's
animals like to walk up to them?
yep. Do they know how to identify the plants in their yard?
Caution, dangerous woman.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're tribal in nature and we're always them versus us. And that's the big problem that's that's probably one of the biggest problems that we're still trying to overcome is
Because we're
that
also supposed to be community. The community
mhm,
is supposed to overpower the tribal.
yeah. It used to, when we all lived in little villages, it was easy to
Fire Nation
identify. Do it.
attacked. Before the Fire Nation attacked.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Uh, we it was easy to identify your community and who you were within it, and now it's much, much more difficult to like, who is my community? There's so many people in my vicinity, and I don't really feel close to most of them. I don't feel connected to most of them. Where is my place? They don't see my importance and why I matter to the community, and I don't see my importance and where I matter in the community.
And there's such
And
a fear of the other, and all of this scarcity as well as amplifying that. But it's also like a fear of intention. Because with me not understanding like just social things in general, I would just assume that like everyone who is nice to me is genuinely nice.
hmm
Then to find out that they're just analyzing things to actually be mean out of fear, like they're creating that anger barrier somehow, and I'm just oblivious to it. There's
Still,
always the unknown.
because that was a big problem when I was in school. I didn't understand, like, but now I can pick up and read the intentions behind most things. So I can tell for the most part. You have to be some sort of kind of narcissistic sociopath to get by my radar now. And that comes from experience. That comes from practice. It's a muscle like anything else, being able to read people and know who's safe and who's genuine and who's got some like fishy stuff going on. I might
Yeah,
not
because
know
there's
what it
some
is.
people who like actively do a good job at hiding that like snaky, darker energy, so they can actively like get what they're wanting. And even though they put out their own field and their own radar, it is still so hard to just like keep our own shields up. And I've made a lot of progress and done a lot of work in having a better identifying. And then I just think, oh, you can casually go to get coffee with these people, and you can't. Like and you can't like share proper knowledge with them the way that you would think or hope. And then I also have to think on the flip side of the coin that like whatever I'm emitting is something I enjoy. Like I am very proud of whatever light is flowing out of me. And yesterday at the funeral, I had gotten in a car with somebody because we were driving them down. It was a long driveway to the nature spot, and we were getting them closer to her car. And there was someone else in the backseat that I had never met before. And she was like, "What's your name?" And I was like, "I'm Amethyst." And it was such a short, brief interaction, like barely any much was even said. And they were like, "You got a really good energy. You're really great." And I hear that a lot throughout my life, but it takes those small reminders to like be able to overlook the fear based social behaviors.
Yeah, the hardest part of most of these things is remembering. Remembering to do it, remembering to put your shields up, remembering to keep yourself grounded, remembering to tune your energy specifically and intentionally rather than just allowing it to default to whatever.
Having a
Um,
good, clean mirror, remembering my impact.
yeah, just all the things, just remembering. Um, I I've it's been a lot of up and down and trial and error in figuring out people in in my place, I suppose. Because, again, when we were living in villages, everything was pretty easy. I say easy, loosely. It probably was not easy. It was probably very hard work, and food didn't come as easily, and, lots of
But there
things.
was never a hand that was not like picked up.
Well, you knew what had to be done as a village, as a family, as a community. The grain had to be picked and then it milled and bread made and clothes washed and children cared for and elderly helped and the animals tended to. There was more of a simplicity to life, even if it wasn't easy, probably. So everybody, and you had a group effort. There was always a group effort. It wasn't one person's job to make sure that everybody ate 3 meals a day. It was 10 or 15 people's jobs. So, the children all played together, which made children easier to navigate because any parent knows that, God, it is not a one-person job. It is not even a two-person job. It is a minimum three-person per kid job. And even they're going to have some hard times with it. Ideally, children need to be put with other children, and the the younger ones look up to the older ones and they emulate the older ones, and that's how they learn how to mature and grow. And then the older ones look after the younger ones, and that's how they learn how to be soft and gentle.
They had
And
a lot less safety to be compromised.
sure.
It's very unfortunate because like we would want to be able to just know that we can like have a neighbor and be like, "Hey, can our kids play together?" Or just being able to play outside unmonitored, and now even that can't happen.
Hmm. Yeah. And if they do need to talk to someone, it wasn't just the same person all the time. You know, like our kids drive us crazy because we're the only person they have to talk to. So they're just rattling off all day, every day. At least mine are. All of the
I think
things.
it's more common or more frequent that environments are preferred where there's always like a finger pointer and there's always someone carrying the weight so that the finger pointing is justified in between, if that makes sense. Like a bitterness built between communities, especially in workplaces. A lot of times there'll be like that person's not helping enough, and there'll be people who get it and they stay in the system and the structure. They keep it working and they think in a team collective mindset. And there's others that are just kind of like there individualistically. And I think it's just that we see that more commonly, and like that happens in households too as well, where
Sure.
like there's always someone pulling in a whole bunch of effort and then another person like ignoring that burnout and then just continuing to go on for whatever, and that creates a lot of imbalances.
Yes, I agree completely. And I feel like used to it was a lot easier to essentially take turns. Uh, and you would have for sure people who didn't want to pitch in and help as much. But I feel like it was probably rarer than it is these days. It's crazy how we live in one of the most abundant times in history, and yet we're still so scarcity mindset.
It's mind blowing. It's baffling because we could access literally anything and everything right now. We could have fruit trees on sidewalks. Why aren't there? Like, what is happening?
Because someone might steal the fruit. Yeah. No, I see these blessing boxes that are popping up all over the places on the corners of, and you stick food in them and diapers and just extra stuff. And I think those are wonderful. And yet Facebook
They're a
is
great concept
constantly complaining about them. Like, and I don't mean complaining that they exist, but people are always like, I can't even keep this stocked because the same person's coming back every single day and just
because it's a
emptying it.
rampant problem. We don't need bars on benches. We can fill the empty houses somehow. It shouldn't be like that.
Hmm. Yeah. We're really good on the last podcast episode I did. We talked about how we want to point fingers and blame this or that, like we see the epidemics around the world of like, the crime epidemics.
That guy's gonna steal your cookies while they have the whole plate full already in there.
Yeah. But we don't want to look at what is causing the problem. Like we just want to see we want to see the problem and we want to point blame at the problem and oh they should do better than that when we don't want to address the fact that the problem is the cost of living and uh, no mental health services that are accessible and um, you know a lot of people's generational inheritance is poverty and mental
And
health
anger.
problems and anger. Yeah, lots of things. And it just passes down the line until someone decides to stop it. And stopping it is really hard. And oftentimes those people are not supported because they are seen as different
It's
and not
easier to be
following.
microaggressive to fellow victims, I guess.
It's sad, but art therapy helps.
Yes.
Yoga
And
helps.
yes, and small interactions, small uplifting, affirmational, just random things out in the world that make it worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to look for the small things. We all think we all think big things, big changes happen with big gestures, big moments, and they can. Uh, a lot of the time, though, big changes are not good changes. They're, you know, painful changes because our body prefers, our mind, our body, our energy, our spirit prefers the uh, slow ebb and flow, the consistent small things is what actually makes the biggest impact. So, yeah, it's easy to say, and they've heard it all before. One step at a time, one small positive interaction at a time, be the change you want to see. And but it's hard, we get resentful and we're like, I'm tired of being the change. I'm tired of being the one who's putting forth the effort and
There's a lot
nobody
of
else is putting
mud.
forth the effort.
Everyone else is slinging mud all the time. It's so
hmm
hard.
It's exhausting, especially when you have progressed to where you don't even understand it anymore. Like why are you still doing that?
And
You
like
know
getting
it's
past the
bad.
point of like having that understanding and thinking it's clear, but it's not even like the whole pot.
Well, I
There's still
mean,
so
like
much.
even clarity itself is relative to change and up for interpretation. Every single one of us lives in our own little reality bubble that's completely unique and completely different than everybody else's reality bubble. It just depends on how we decide to perceive the world and decide that, because we all decide we know how it works, right? At a certain point. And
We
that's
have
what
the
we define as
fantastical,
clarity.
and we have to keep it going with the mechanical all the time.
That's what's fun though. That's how you make it fun, is you
Yeah,
decide that it can be fantastical alongside the mechanical.
all the time, simultaneously.
Yes.
Another thing I did want to say, the small things as well. So yesterday, there were just a few little like quirks and things. So, she had like a little after they finished the whole like dirt back flattening part. They put a bunch of plants on top of her and things, and there was a tiny little like mushroom fairy ring around the corner of it. And I don't think they did that on purpose. And then I had seen it like get kind of smashed up afterwards. I did get a cute little picture when it was fairy ring shaped, and I had noticed other small things like I'd worn a butterfly belt. And then one of my other friends, she had butterfly bow clips in her hair, like cute little gold ones. And there were butterflies literally in so many random parts throughout. And after people had gotten done talking, like the sun had gotten a little bit brighter, how it does its little change there. And I just think it's all in those things, that there's no like balance if we don't continually recognize the good things all the time, because there's way too much chaos and bad. It's
hmm
so easy for it to get very very uh bomb
hmm
explosive.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that. It's a trap for sure because it is all over the place and you do have and again, our brains are wired to look for and notice and pay attention to the bad because that's what's dangerous.
And it
It
keeps
doesn't
us in survival. It allows us to be aware of what to do, but
Mhm.
we shouldn't have to have those states permanently.
Yeah, it's hyperactive. It's overzealous. It takes its job way too seriously. Nobody likes the CEO who's no fun to be around. The manager at the store who takes his job way too his, you know, $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year job way too seriously. Like it's not that deep, guy. Calm down. You think this company actually cares about you any more than they care about us? They don't. Just numbers, just ones and zeros and
There's
stats.
not an off switch, but there is self-care.
Yeah. Yeah, there's things that you can do to make the ride a little bit easier, a little bit more fun. That's where I think we need to focus more is make it more fun. There's a I've talked before about how there's so many following the mental health crisis, so many people who are there's so many children, so many kids who are suicidal. And I have friends who it's a constant battle trying to keep their teenager alive. They've been in and out of the hospital, had their stomach pumped, went to the psychiatric wards for a while. It's a constant battle trying to keep their kid alive. And trying to explain to them what the purpose of life is so hard because they don't understand. They're like, what is the point? What, like, if I die now or if I die when I'm 85, wouldn't we save myself and everybody else a whole lot of heartbreak and trouble if we just opted out now?
And the efforts it takes to continue living all feel defeating. like constantly. Like it's like, oh, where does it lead? What is the benefit?
It's hard to see if you're stuck in that darkness and that tunnel of where is the light, everywhere you look. Because it's a momentum thing. And if your momentum is towards that despair and the darkness, then that's all you see everywhere. It just grows and grows and grows.
And stress permanently alters the brain to where it makes it genetically like predisposed to constant stress.
Hmm.
Um, Something interesting is there was a class I had a few years ago. It was a physiological psychology, and the professor he had done sleep studies for the Navy, and there was a study he was working on about the connections between circadian rhythm and suicidal ideation. And we all have our own internal like time clocks and circadian rhythms to follow, and he had seen that if we're not in our like routine that our body and brain are set for instance, if we work a night shift and sleep during the day, but our body wanted to run the opposite of that, then that could create what's called feelings of entrapment,
Hmm.
which goes down to the pathway of suicide because you're not receiving any of what you're actually needing because you're completely out of whack. You can't have a routine, you can't follow what activities you would need throughout the day. You're not getting the right sunlight, just all kinds of factors into play that we're all missing out on. And
Hmm.
we can't create, like, for instance, if that person with that schedule just could not change it at all, then they're like stuck. Their life has to revolve around maintaining that. And it gives them no opportunity to like find personal time.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people are stuck in that. Mostly because of how the world's been designed around us.
They can't
So,
do the slow living in any way or like find a moment.
hmm uh, there's been a big uptick in homesteading these last few years, and I think that that's just amazing. And that shows you what people are finding happiness in.
Resilience and
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. Uh, we got chickens, and my husband got me a greenhouse like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. And the Alabama heat just burns everything in it. It didn't have enough airflow. It was plexiglass and it had one door and one window, and that just was not enough in July or August. And so winter was really the only time I could really do anything in it other than like starting seeds in like February, March, and whatnot. So we turned the greenhouse into a chicken coop. And then so we just did that this past summer, and I was struggling the past like month or two. I was like, I need to start some seeds, but I don't have anywhere to start seeds. Because originally I was like, it's fine because it bakes everything in there anyway, and it's not really working. And so but anyway, long story short, I now have a second greenhouse, but it's
I was
a
thinking you'd make
hoop
like
house.
shaded garden beds or
Yeah, you really have to work with shade. If it says full sun, it does not actually mean full sun in our climate. So it takes a lot
it
of,
can absorb 70% sun, maybe.
yeah, yeah. And see, that's another thing that we've lost our connection to. Gardening is so hard, and people think it's not. If you've never tried it, most people think you just stick a seed in the ground and ta-da, leave it alone, maybe pull some weeds and you're done. But that is not true. It is a complete, unique art form to each individual plot of land. Okay, so
It
even in the
has to be
same
studied
climate,
and it's meticulous, and it was probably easier back then as well because I remember being younger and walking through a garden barefoot, being able to pull squash as a kid with like an
mhm,
oversized t-shirt. And now, who has land?
yeah, yeah, used to the same family would work a piece of land for generations. So you were connected to the land, you were connected to your ancestors, you were connected to the seasons, the rain came during this time of year and the snow comes during this time of year, and then during this time of year it's super dry, so this is what you have to do for that. And we don't have any kind of connection to any of those things anymore.
And we're not with the trees. Like some people spend all day, every day in a building where they don't see outside.
And then they wonder why they're depressed.
You gotta walk with the trees.
Yep. But don't suggest going outside because they don't like it out there. There's bugs out there.
Scurry. Very scurry.
We spend a lot of time. I think nature is healing. Nature is spiritual. Nature is God, essentially. I've been coming back to religion. I had a lot of egotistical things that kept me from even looking in the direction of Christianity for a really long time because, I grew up in it and I was like, not
It
what I want.
creates a lot of barriers and shields that are you have to like actually break through in some way.
hmm And, that's exactly what the Catholic guy was experiencing when all of his shields went up when I started talking about my life and how I do things. And so there's this constant, I've got my shields up and they've got their shields up, and we can't make any progress like that. So I did the past couple of years through pickleball, of all things, find a couple of friends who are very, 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 very Christian, right? Like they are in it. And normally, historically, I would have been like, "Oh, that's good for you," but no, thank you.
Stay at
And
a distance. Type
yeah,
thing.
yeah. But they infiltrated my barriers, and we have become unexpectedly really good friends. And never once have they ever tried to push their beliefs on me. And never once have they judged me or made my beliefs out to in a bad light.
I love
They've
being able to remove that discomfort from the shoulders
mhm.
and be able to like talk about certain keyword topics successfully with people instead of having that like
Yes,
scrunched up feeling of like, oh, when am I going to get out of this room?
I agree. So I didn't even try for a long, long time. And so it's been really slow. They've shown me that you can have those beliefs. We can have opposing beliefs and still find common ground and live peacefully. And it's been a really big thing for me in my life lately. And so I've been trying to essentially see what all the hype is about. So I've been reading the Bible, and I've read a couple of these Christian heavy books that they recommended, and I like fiction. Is that it? False. Yes, fiction is
Yeah.
false. No, I like nonfiction, not false. I like nonfiction. I always get them confused. But so I have a it has to be a really, 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 really good story to get my attention, fiction wise, novel wise, or like I can't make myself, it's that productivity mindset. I can't waste my time sitting here reading this if it
Yeah, I
doesn't
want
really
to
have
multitask
my
while
attention.
reading. How do you do that?
Yeah.
It makes
Well,
it difficult.
you do it through audiobooks. So you just
Um,
pop them in your ears and then you get to listen read while you clean your house or do your arts and crafts or garden or whatever.
when I was younger, I used to be very partial to fantasy, like magic, supernatural,
Same.
sci-fi things. And now, as an adult, I like self-help. One of
Yeah.
the books I've been spending the most time on is Coming to Our Senses by John Kabat-Zinn. A lot of like mindfulness books, but also another one I really like. I thought I had it nearby. Oh, it's on my TV stand. But it's Doom and Bloom by Campbell Walker, and that's basically a creation and destruction type of book, which is also self help. But he put a lot of like drawings and comics in it that I enjoy. And yeah, I love reading. It's so great.
I like reading too, but it's really hard for me to find a novel that I like. I really liked. Me and my son have been, I read all the Harry Potter books when I was in high school, and then me and my son have been rereading them together. Well, audiobooks, we listen to them, and it's just been wonderful. So, like, those are great. And then we just finished, we did all the Hunger Games books with the Ballad of Songbird and Snakes and the Sunrise on the Reaping. We just finished
I
Sunrise
need
on
to
the
get
Reaping like last
those
week.
so that I
Oh
can read
man.
those.
Oh man. Yeah, you do. It's hard for me to find books like that are
Are
not self-help.
captivating.
And those are wonderful. Of course, Sunrise on the Reaping will tear your heart out and stomp on it. But the other one's not too bad. Emotionally wise. Anyway, super cool. Um, but yeah, so I've been reading all these books trying to see what it's like on the other side. And my friend asked me the other day, she was like, I noticed that you're using like I had said something about like God or prayer, I don't know. And she was like, I noticed that you're saying all of these words lately. Like I don't even
Delusional dialogue. That's amazing. But it's also real at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. So I told her, she was like, what's that about? What's going on with you with that? And I was like, well, I would not consider myself Christian, but I do believe in a lot of the same things, like I don't believe that God is like a man in the sky. I think God is consciousness and is all of the things.
An
God,
amalgamation of the colors, the shapes, the numbers, everything all together.
everything. Yes, everything. There's nothing that's not, right? You and I and this house, the computer, the internet, the wavelengths that are giving us the internet and the signal and like everything, 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 everything.
And it would be considered self harm to deny any type of connection.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of, that's what a lot of people are missing, that whole, they're like, there's something that just is missing and they can't figure out what it is. And it's connection. It's connection with a higher power. But I say that loosely because
There's a
it's,
guiding force, and like it's so magical. Like I try to so like migraine with aura, I try to imagine that all these little like fairy sparkle things, which it's terrible because aura, the flickering lights that shows up whenever I'm getting a migraine,
mm.
they're awful, but they're pretty. The little sparkles that show up, and I try to imagine that there's always some random little fairies around, like doing things like that to try to keep us like going in the directions that need to matter to more than one somebody's. Like they're just constantly working somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the power is in our imagination for sure. And we get to decide what we believe. We get to decide what we look at, what we think about, and we can let it default to oftentimes despair and anxiety, or
And
we
we're the
can
ones fueling
choose.
that fire, and it'll
Mhm.
get bigger in our eyes if we continue giving it the woods.
Yeah, there are no mental police. There you can pretend anything you want to pretend and it makes things better. It makes things happier. It doesn't matter if it's true or if it's not. What it matters is does it help you cope? Does it help make things a little bit more manageable?
Can it
That's it.
become tangible in some way in small little steps?
And it can if you believe it, if you feel it. If you want to believe it and feel it. But it was okay. So it was my ego for a long time that wouldn't allow me to say the words like God or prayer or, any devotional,
Prayer is still a
anything.
weird one for me, and I've even like tried to take time, and it's still I don't. It's just the trauma is too deeply ingrained, but there's still progress there with a lot
Yeah.
of like wording.
Well, it's intention setting, right? It's manifesting. It's alignment work. It's shadow work. It's hopes and goals and desires and uh law of attraction and it's all the same
Energy
thing.
studying, it all connects.
It's all the same thing. And so I told her, I said that I know for a fact it was my ego for a long time keeping me from being able to say these words. And then I realized that there wasn't much difference in what I believed and what they believed. And me being stuck on both of us, both sides of the party here, being stuck on the I'm right and they're wrong. And
Star-bellied sneeches, basically.
sure, but if I could use their language, use their words, and in my head and in my heart, I know that I mean my words and my belief system, which is pretty similar, if not exactly the same, to their beliefs and their language and system. I bridge that gap and they understand where I'm coming from because I'm speaking their language.
And you can
That
literally feel things changing, like in the air around that
you
as
can.
well, when you enhance that type of conversation. So I lived with my dad briefly after having my son, and that was horrible. That was not great. He and his wife have access to the internet and have created a very odd cult out of the information they've discovered. And the problem was that we did have very similar beliefs, but because of the wording or like
Mhm.
symbolism, they went on a very like hard Hebrew track. Like
Okay.
he burned their stuffed animals. They only wear one fabric. Things like that. There's no mirrors in the house. They have Hebrew wards over the doors. It's very insane. It's wild. And I didn't disrespect it in the house, and I even removed any of my clothing that had any type of satanic symbolism, even though not all of it was satanic. And he was still just so very aggressive, like so
Mm.
very violent about placing these beliefs and saying, like, oh, can we teach your son? Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, as long as you do it in an open minded way. Like, don't instill it, don't enforce it, and say this is how things are. Just present it as a concept. And he was still just not, uh, he wouldn't understand that we did have similar beliefs. He just was one track minded, thinking, oh, Satan, Satan. And that wasn't even what I was following to begin with.
Mm.
He was just very shielded himself, and it caused a lot of headbutting instead of cooperation. And I was becoming delusional at the time from being stressed out about being around him. And I didn't even see it as aggressive. I was like, look, I don't understand what the problem is here. Like, I was hearing choir music. It was insane. It was wild. I was like, I understand your beliefs. I'm not even discrediting them. Why are you so angry? And there's a lot of like fear that just creates so much aggression.
Hmm. Yeah, most aggression is fear and insecurities and uh, displacement. So, like, not feeling connected to this person or that person or this thing or that thing. And if you don't know how to emotionally regulate and you don't understand how the emotional scales work and how one thing leads to this particular action, then you're doomed to just get stuck in your patterns and repeat and repeat.
Yeah, I would even try to like speak in the same dialogue, like use the same keywords that he and his wife were using about things, and try to like express that I've been absorbing the information they've been giving me. And they would still get weirded out by like general concepts of empathy. Like I would try to express gratitude in things I was doing, and they would view it as attacks. So their
Hmm.
perceptions were very like solidified about me, regardless of whatever efforts I would have made.
Yes, you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. And so, there's somebody in my life who's super, super, super jealous of everything. And they're always like, ah, such and such got a new this, and they brought it over and rubbed it in my face. I'm like, no, no.
You
They got
perceived it.
excited. They had a new toy. They came to share their new toy with their friend because, again, we're all just freaking kids, just big kids. Got a new toy. We show my friend. And then you got jealous that your friend had a new toy. Did you forget that you're a grown person and you could just go buy yourself a toy?
And we can be excited for each other.
You could be like, oh, now your friend's got a toy and you didn't have to spend the money on it, and now you get to play with it. Because that's what they're doing. They're like, hey, I got a new toy. You want to play with it? So y'all take turns playing with it.
It's hard
It's not that hard.
to deprogram or reprogram
Mm-hmm.
the natural instinct to just be mad, to just
Mm-hmm.
find reasons for anger. And when some people are just stuck in that, just every day, daily finding a problem with any stranger or friend or family member, like just genuinely needing to fuel that anger part.
Mm-hmm. I always, bless their hearts. That's how I feel about it. That's how I've really adopted that. Bless their hearts. They can't help it. They don't know any better. Uh, I had two grandparents who had dementia before they died, and it was exhausting. And we had family because they were seeing things, they were hallucinating, they were
And acts
uh
of kindness were probably even confusing to them, or
sure, just everything. They were just all over the place with reality. And I had family, even after the doctors told us, just go with it. Just let them believe whatever they want to believe. Just don't fight them because if you fight them, if you try to explain to them what truth is, they're just going to get agitated and it's going to make things worse. Even after the doctors told us that, because I was just doing that anyway, because it was just easier
yeah,
to
that's what
go
they say
along.
in mental health, like behavioral aid training as well. With patients who have any sort of delusions, we're supposed to not combat them, not give in to them either, but also kind of like try to keep them taking care of their basic functions while letting them have the delusions.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as they're not hurting anybody, then it's fine. Like, okay. Okay, Granny. So you're seeing little people
Because their
out
whole
in your
world
yard?
is actually wrapped around it. Like it is creating that dissonance. That reality is very much altered. It
Mm-hmm.
is gonna break if someone actually like. It's embarrassing too for them to be like, "Oh, I'm acting abnormal around you guys. I don't need to be grounded to reality right now."
Sure. And then cognitive dissonance is activated, so that's why they become combative. So, Granny tells you that there's some little people out in her yard every single night. You go, okay, Granny, what are they doing?
What can we do to solve this?
Like, well, they're doing this and they're doing that. Okay, well, what do you do when you notice them? Oh, I just let them. I just lock the door and I go back in and I just ignore them. Okay, well, good. You just keep doing that. You don't
Close
have
the
to.
curtains even.
Yeah, easy peasy. So that's kind of how. So being around my grandparents who had dementia, and then also contrasting that with children who are the same way. You just kind of have to, dementia, older people, we're like, oh, they're losing their minds. When children,
Are
children,
developing theirs.
and they're just using their imagination. But sometimes they'll get like my kids, even now, they'll tell me something and then it's obviously incorrect. Like they'll tell me something about how the world works. And I wish I could think of a proper example because I'm going to butcher this and it's going to sound like I don't parent very well. But they'll tell me something that's obviously wrong. And if it doesn't matter that it's wrong, I'll just be like, oh, okay, well, that's nice. And then, like, say my daughter said something, she's younger. My son, who's 10, will be like, what? No. And then they end up fighting. And I'm like, see, like, it was not worth it. It was not worth the fight.
This is the time I would have spent explaining.
And, like, sometimes you should explain, but sometimes it doesn't matter, and you kind
I
of
like
have
to
to.
respond back sometimes with like riddles or humor. Like I'll answer some of his questions, especially if he's trying to ask like big universe questions. I'll just think of creative ways to like work around the answers, especially because he's only 8 now.
Mhm.
Like by the time he's like 12 or 14, I'm more than happy to like show direct information.
Sure.
And so we'll watch things and I'll point out, I'll be like, that's really happening. Like that's what's really going on. And it'll be like Trolls World Tour or some other like there's even Jurassic Park movies, I'm like, oh, that's a real concept. Or any anime, all the time. So many animes. I'm like, oh, they're telling us the real thing. I like truth in fiction, especially with him because it helps him like understand like, oh, and hopefully he'll like formulate his own beliefs.
Yeah, you point him in a certain direction, let him go and see what happens.
Make him
Absolutely.
aware of like the evils that exist, but also like push him towards the good parts.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's always both. I hate that we didn't even touch on anime at all till just now.
Yeah, I
And
only mentioned one, I think, and that was very briefly.
I didn't even catch it. Which one did we miss? Oh, wait.
Hell's Paradise, the
Okay.
Tao transfer. It's a really good one.
Oh,
There's a new episode of it today, actually.
okay. What's it called?
A Hell's Paradise.
Okay. I haven't heard of it. I'm pretty just mainstream
It's
anime.
beautifully drawn, and there's a lot of Buddhist concepts throughout. It's very well done. I love it. I even leading up to today, I was trying to think of so many concepts. I was like, there's so many animes that could be talked about with like
Yes.
the spiritual world and healing connections and the concepts that they do. There's so many, but yeah, I only got to drop one.
Sorry. Yeah,
It's
I
okay.
get distracted. Uh
We
I
still had a great conversation.
yeah, I think so too.
Yes.
Anime has such a powerful place in the entertainment world, and if people don't watch it, they don't know. You either have people who are like, yes, or you have people who are like, no.
Yeah,
And
I get looked at for like I'm weird all the time, but like there's so many. It's just unrestricted creativity, and it's always talking about real things with like metaphors or demons or like swords or all kinds of random magic things, and it's just beautiful. There's
Well, the
so much that.
Japanese, the Eastern culture, just collectively are, America's still really young. We know that. We hear it said all the time, but we forget how young we are. We are babies and
Our teeth and our kneecaps are still missing.
yeah, literally. So these ancient cultures have had so much time to really get into the depths of creationism and psychology and what it means to be a community and how you conflict resolve and all these things that we're still figuring out over here. And it shows up in the anime of
It's so elevated. It's so good.
it's so good. It's so good. The concepts of how each and every single person are completely different. And, it looks weird to people who don't understand because they're like, okay, well, take My Hero Academia, for example. Every single one of these people, like some of them are really funky looking, right? And they see that and they just surface level hard stop. I don't know what this
Yeah,
is.
they don't want to get past the art, and I have that problem too with some. Like, I just now have started One Piece because the art has thrown me off. I'm very weird about certain type of art styles, and now that I've gotten past it and I can actually be like, "Oh, this is great." It's just that's I feel like that's a problem for a lot of people, or some adults think they can't watch cartoons, and like, no, you can. Who is stopping you? But you.
I don't even like live action anymore. The animation is all forms of animation or comedy is the only thing that I'm really interested in. Or like I like a little bit of action flick, but for the most part, I don't want anything that's going to stir my emotions because I have enough of those and
Yeah,
they
I
are a
used to be
constant battle.
I used to be like all horror movies as a kid. Like I was very like gore, graphic, dark, blah blah blah. Like everything that is bad for a nervous system, I
Yeah.
was all about as a kid. And now I don't like things that stress me out. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I wish I had gotten a warning about this making me cry. And I'm so sensitive now. I'm the exact opposite, especially when things involve like babies or animals. I get way too emotional, and I even cry for happy things for people. So I
Yeah.
try to avoid like bad stuff now, but it's good. It means that like we're in control and that we can have like boundaries set on our environment. but I was coping with a lot as well. And anime, as what like it shows, there's just so much brightness in it.
Hmm. Even in the darkness.
Yes, and it also shows us that like all of our progress is hindered by war. Like all of it boils down to that is like all the hatred has just taken us down way too many notches, and it continues to like we could be so much further.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Animation still tugs at the heartstrings, but there's something in my head that like it's softer. So, because it's animated, it's animated. It's not, real life. I regret watching The Walking Dead on a weekly basis still. I got some hard secondary trauma from that show. Uh,
What's crazy is I thought about mentioning it a few topics ago when we were talking about how community and like how people, that's a prime example of how it didn't have to get that bad because everyone's just scared of each other community they find. They're like, you're going to take our food and our resources. And
Got to get them
they
before they
could
get
go
you.
much further if they would just work together.
Hmm. Which, I mean, you're always going to have people who are crazy, like legitimately. And you're always going to have people who are power hungry. And you're always going to have people who go against, are essentially damaged and go against the greater good of all for the sake of the individual, themselves. But also, the vast majority of all of those problematic characteristics stem from unmet needs in childhood. So, I always bring everything full circle back around to the kids and how, I love how anime does that, does the mentor thing really well. It's always some kids that are just getting out into the world and figuring things out and figuring out who they are and the power of friendship. And you always have their mentors who have been there, done that, and they're just gently guiding and just there if they need them. And you always, I have adults all the time, they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, if you don't know where to start, you can always look at the kids in your life and think about who you looked up to as a kid, who was there, who did good for you
And
as a
what do
kid.
you want them to remember seeing or experiencing or feeling?
Yeah, there's
And how
lots of
can you
things.
provide that?
They'll teach you how to play. They'll teach you how to not take things so seriously. They'll teach you how to love and be kind. The kids are so pure that man, I would rather hang out with them than adults any day. Because at least with kids, you know exactly what you're getting. They're straightforward. They tell you. They're just organic.
And they have more whimsy. They want to play. I'm always, especially lately, like having to get groceries and things going into stores. It's been terrible. Um, and I'm always having to be like my own underlying voice of like, that's the point. That's the point. Because we're not supposed to be doing the fast living, and children slow you down.
Yeah, they do.
I have to constantly tell myself that's the point. They're meant to like keep you present, keep you slow, and like not all this next activity, next task. And my brain is permanently kind of like hardwired into like, oh my God, I have so much to do.
Hmm.
Oh, and it makes it difficult to actually fully invest in the activities I'm doing. But the taking the 20 minutes to do yoga or like sitting down to paint, those are like things that are actually just keeping it all held together.
Hmm. Yeah, if only more people understood. I always have people that at the end of class, they're like, wow, that was amazing. I didn't know how much I needed that. And then they don't come back. I mean, I don't take it personally. I understand it's a product of how we've designed the world. We've taught people that their worth is in the how much they can produce and what they can be and do. We have see if I can speak in code without like talk about people without talking about people. But we have this one person in our life who works with children. Okay, we have an organization, we work with children, and our leader, even though does so much for our organization, and man, we would not have been able to get halfway where we are without him. He puts all these things in place and he makes sure that we have sponsors and he makes sure that the activities are um, well manned and everything's in order. And he does it for the kids, quote, for the kids. But we can all, those are who are underneath him, can tell that he's doing it for his own like uh place in history. He wants to make a he wants to make his mark per se. So even though it's quote unquote for the kids, he misses the mark
It's
when it actually
accomplishment
comes.
building more
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So he yells a lot and he doesn't necessarily interact with the kids as well as we would want someone, but man, does he do all the things up here for him. And it's just we we miss the mark a lot trying to hit the mark too hard. Does that make sense? Like you try,
Yes.
so the doing all of those big accomplishment things does take a lot of focus, a lot of work, a lot of power and like manpower and drive and stuff. And kids do hold you back and kids do slow you down. So it's kind of like missing the forest for the trees.
The bigger pictures
Mm-hmm.
overclouding all of like the little moments.
Mm-hmm.
And they use those moments to learn and grow. So like having to be mindful of them is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because kids, they're it's you can't do as I say, not as I do in with kids. Like they're gonna do what you emulate, what you model. And that's it. That's the only thing that they're gonna
And
do.
modeling is literally one of like the main ways that they do learn and grow.
That's the only way any of us learn and grow, really, is by seeing other people doing the thing. So we're like, oh, okay, that's how you do the thing. I guess I could probably at least try to halfway do the thing. It looks pretty attainable from here. But just like kids who grow up in you either learn what to do or what not to do, right? You, we have um I have to be careful. Don't get too pointy and stuff. But you know, each and every one of us grew up in a certain type of environment, and whether or not that environment was positive or negative, we either turn out as adults either just like the people who were, you know, are caregivers and adults in those environments, or we turn out exactly opposite of them because they're either teaching us what to do or they're teaching us what not to do by their actions. And you can't tell a kid, "Hey, don't do this thing that I'm doing." That doesn't fly.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is a challenge now. You're inviting me to figure it out myself.
Perhaps.
I had a therapist in Wisconsin who she didn't even know a fraction, like just a little bit of the information, and she was like, "You are a prime example of the human spirit." And I didn't understand when she said that, and that was like 2019. And since then, I've had like a whole different reflection of like, yeah, I guess so, because everyone in my family was like addicts, abusive, like everything about them was just not great. One of my family houses burned down with no electricity in it, things like that. My mom had always been in and out of jail. It's always been so bad. And I'm like the one person who came out of the family. Like, I'm the first person who graduated high school in a long time. I'm going to be the first person in a generation not killed by her husband. And it's really like sad to think about how it could have like stopped earlier. Like it could
Hmm.
have been broken by someone else, but I'm having to be the one to do it. And the trajectory, almost everything in my childhood and family life could have led me to either being a user or someone who hurts people in some way.
Sure.
Like, but the fact that it didn't means I literally just saw that and said, I don't want that for myself or my son. And I've even had to explain to my mom, I'm like, I can't have that around him. Like, I would see her breaking blinds all kinds of crazy behaviors just because she could not like be present in
Mm-hmm.
any way in life and had a lot of escapism and addiction issues. So it's wild to think that like I had to purposefully and actively choose that for it to work.
Exactly. And they don't understand because they always want to come back with, well, you did fine, didn't you? You turned out
It
okay.
makes them mad. They're like, "How dare you do better?"
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. That is exactly it. And it's, I've never understood. I'm like, we're supposed to be a team for the next generation. Like, we're supposed to be a team that comes together for this kid that we have collectively made, and we're supposed to work together for the best of this kid. Why are you actively doing the opposite of what I ask you to please not do? Like, why are you, like, it's not a riddle you have to figure out. It's not,
Our hands are meant for uplifting, not beating down.
yeah.
And their mindsets, it's wild to think about how like they're just stuck
Mm-hmm.
in
A lot
very
of it
like extreme states of anger.
A lot of it comes back to that community village thing, that them versus us. And each little community, each little village has its own parameters for what it means to be a part of us versus them. So it's kind of like you make different choices than they made. They feel like it's a personal attack against themselves and their own. So now you're the nail that sticks out gets hit, right? Gets hit on the head.
Yeah, I'd much rather be a black sheep as long as my son gets to like actually express himself and live creatively and not have to worry about someone just being mean just to be mean.
Sure. But historically, when we needed each other, we needed the community to survive, then that's where our brain wired. And historically speaking, like genetically and passed down through ancestral and stuff. Um, when you saw a family member being different than what the established norm was, it's instinct to wrangle them back in. Like, oh, you're being different. That's going to get you ostracized. Come back over here. You got to be like us. You have to be like us so that the village
Which
accepts
there is a
you.
lot of parenting pressure, but it creates like a difficulty letting them actually develop identities.
Hmm. It's hard. You want to control. You want to know what's best for them, and but you can't. You have to let everybody fly free.
This was a great conversation today.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed it too. Um, Anything you want to add before we go?
No,
Anything you want to plug?
I think I'm pretty good for now.
Okay, you still working on that art therapy?
Yes, I'm getting my bachelor's in December. Now I
Okay.
just have forensic psych, experimental psych, and figure drawing classes.
All right, cool. And then you'll be able to start working with people for that.
Yes, which
Awesome.
in Alabama is not very well paid, but that's not the money part that I'm in it for to begin with. But it is hard to find a profession because I've been at a mental health center before, like as a worker, and the way that they treat people, I could not be a part of it. So it'll take me a while to find one that I'm actually like comfortable with and in.
Yeah, humanitarian professions historically have been underpaid, and like you can look at teachers. Teachers are historically underpaid and mistreated, and we could go on forever, but I'll try to wrap things up.
Yeah, we can schedule another one because this is great. I enjoy doing things like this.
Good. I enjoyed it too. I'm glad you came on and chatted with me.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll let everybody go now.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.